Welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Rochester. For more than 150 years, ours has been a congregation of open minds and loving hearts, celebrating many sources of wisdom and many spiritual paths. Your faith, your doubts, your questions, your hopes for our world, and your story are welcome here. Today is a special threshold type of service. It's our last pre-recorded service. I'm going to say goodbye to the little camera on a stand here. Now, this may not mean a whole lot to you, understandably, but it has been our practice for 17 months now to record our services in small segments, mostly entirely alone. There's no one else here but me right now, either here in the sanctuary or in a quiet room in our home. Words and music that were magically woven together into a service video that was posted each Sunday morning, ready to go, prepackaged. Next Sunday, August 1st, we move to live streaming, which means the service will be led in real time with live people in shared space here in the sanctuary, live on Sunday morning at 9 a.m. You can still join us online. That will not change. You'll always be able to join us online, live streaming through our YouTube channel at 9 a.m. on Sunday or any time after that. The video will still be there. You can join us or find the link on Facebook to our YouTube page as well. Now, live streaming will look and sound a little different, less polished in some ways, but much more communal as we lead service together. We've done a few tests, all seem well. We'll have to adjust things and learn as we go about sound and video and space, but we're ready to begin that learning. We'll have a small group of staff and leaders present the first 2 weeks, August 1st and 8th, as we adjust the technology and the physical space. And this is all to prepare to return to in-person services on Sunday, August 15th, with the option for in-person or online at either 9 a.m. or 11 a.m. with an outdoor social hour between services at 10 a.m., weather permitting, of course. The live stream will continue at 9 a.m. and be available anytime after that, so there will be multiple paths, live stream, in person. So as we begin, we'll be asking our entire community to join in returning to our space with the utmost care for each other, which will include some of these practices. Everyone in the building on Sundays, vaccinated or not, all ages, are expected to wear a mask. For tracing and space planning, we'll ask you to register for services ahead of time. There will be a weekly link in your e-news, or you can call the office. There will also be registration for nursery care and children's activities. We'll share more details about how this will all work, including a confirmation of registration and other verbal announcements on the services where we'll be together about how our practices will be a little different out of a practice of care and compassion for all in our community. So for today's service, this last pre-recorded service, we're grateful for the unique types of videos we've been glad to have this year, including special music from the choir. You'll hear from them several times today. And some recordings from last week's Kids Chalice Camp as we kicked off our re-entering our space together in safe ways and reopening and widening the ways we can connect in person. We're so glad to have kids and youth here on our property, mostly outside, a little bit inside as needed, of course. Last week, in what was called the Univalerian University of Wizarding Arts program, that Chalice Camp, they explored magic and wonder, their own powers of truth and faith and hope and love to transform the world. And some of their story is in this patchwork here from kids and youth of Chalice Camp, which made this beautiful work of art adorning our chalice table. So today, their wands and their voices and their power and their presence and their hands signing the words to Spirit of Life will grace our service and help us light our chalice. We are grateful for our church's children for leading us today and leading us to whatever comes next, uncertain as some of it still is. So finally, in the words of the Reverend Eliza Tupper Wilkes, minister of this church in the 1870s. May our faith in humanity and our message of hope and good cheer light our way. It's good to be together.
This is the Unitarian Universalist Church. This is the Church of the Flaming Chalice. This is the Church of the Open Mind. This is the Church of the Loving Heart, where friends come together and share. We are magic!
It's been quite the journey these past 16 months, pivoting from eating and singing together to Zoom this and Zoom that. As I reflected on how this has impacted how we worship, certain words popped into my mind. First and utmost is a sense of gratitude. Gratitude that we have such a strong, amazing set of staff members and volunteers supporting our congregation who've tried new things and figured out how to put together a high-quality virtual service, basically on the fly. Creating these pre-recorded services has required flexibility on the part of the participants and the congregation. Often we've had to change plans over a short period of time and learn new technologies. But it has also added flexibility. We can watch services at a time that works for us, and we can record our part even if we aren't available on the weekend. This year has tapped into our creativity. We've learned new ways to do the familiar. For instance, technology allowed us to introduce a sense of magic on Christmas Eve, passing a candle from one house to the next. We also handed out physical candles so that we could tap into those memories of Christmas Eves past. And we've certainly gotten to see more of the organ and how it's played than we've ever seen before. This past year, we've seen commitment to our congregation. For this, I think of how the choir has created recordings for the greater good, even though they're challenging to do, and they really don't provide the same sense of personal fulfillment as in-person singing. There's a vulnerability in creating recordings for a virtual service. It can be scary to record and listen to yourself and know that your words or performance are out there on the World Wide Web for all to see. And I think you have to go into this with a sense of trust. Trust that your single part will somehow fit together and that the whole will be greater than the sum of the parts. Then there's accessibility, which has been an important theme for worship. In some ways, having people record at home on their own schedule has allowed us to hear more from more voices, and we've been able to reach more people than we typically would have on a given pre-pandemic Sunday. But we also know that we're missing people too, and that virtual services aren't accessible to everyone. My final word is possibility, as we figure out where we're going from here. We have the opportunity to think about what traditions we hold dear and what perhaps have served their purpose. We have new tools now to help broaden our accessibility, and I think we need to be more intentional about what voices we're hearing. On to the next phase of our grand adventure.
Do not leave your cares at the door. Do not leave them there when you come into this place. Be open to forgiveness and transformation. Come on in, you are welcome here. And do not leave your cares at the door. Bring your pain and sorrow and joy. There's a place for them upon the altar of life. Be open to forgiveness and transformation. Come on in, you are welcome here. And do not leave your cares at the door. This is a place of grace, a place of losing and finding our way upon the winding road, meeting and parting, stumbling and even yours. So come on in and do not leave your cares at the door. Do not leave them there when you come into this place. Be open to forgiveness and transformation. Come on in, you are welcome here. And do not leave your cares at the door. Amen. Amen. Amen.
July 12th through the 16th of this year, we held our 11th annual Chalice Camp. It was an amazing time to be back together again in person and a wonderful way to reopen the church. We had kids we hadn't seen almost in 2 years since the last in-person Chalice Camp. We had new kids join us and tons of youth counselors. It was a fantastic time. This year's theme, the Unilaverian University of the Wizarding Arts, or UWA as we've come to call it, was a time for us to be together and celebrate all of the magic inside each of us. Part of the experience was being divided into 4 multi-age houses, ranging from 4 years old to 16 years old. Each of these houses have their own guardian and a virtue that it strives to live by every day in its life. So our children got to learn about the Draithen, the guardian, the dragon, and their virtue of faith. They got to learn about the Trufin, the virtue of truth brought forth by the dolphin, Lovesis, the virtue of love, along with the flying Pegasus, and Hopfix, hope, and the phoenix that always rise from the ashes. I hope you enjoy hearing just a little bit of what we learned at Chalice Camp this year.
Once upon a time, in a church made of stone built upon a rocky hill named Walden, lived the people called UUWAs.
They were a people of big hearts and open minds, and though they didn't always know it, they were made of stars and earth and magic.
Sickness began spreading throughout the land. The doors of the castle-like church closed to protect people from getting sick as the clouds of loneliness and isolation started.
It was okay for a while. They met through magical screens across miles and oceans to play music and share words from their homes.
They drove in their carriages, some carried by hundreds of horsepower, to pour their waters together in the sacred bowl, and to see magical winter lights, and drive under the bright colors of the spring maypole, and to turn in their pledge forms.
As the clouds of isolation and loneliness continued, the people began to wonder what to do. They could find a way out of this storm.
It started with the children, as it almost always does, because children know we are magic.
We are magic!
And they began to gather their powers, and they wore the bright colors of hope like a cape and cloak. And they remembered the power of the little light within them was still shining, even in the middle of clouds.
So they grabbed their wands. Wizards, wands up! Some of them came with the power of truth. The truth of science and care for each other.
Some of them came with the power of faith. The faith to believe that beauty could survive the storm.
Some of them came with the power of hope. The hope that the storm would pass and they would gather again.
Some of them came with the power of love. The love to protect each other and find new ways to be together.
And what their magic taught them was that truth and faith and hope and love was within everyone.
All they needed to do was remember, we are magic.
We are magic!
We are magic.
We are magic!
We are love.
Oh, we are love.
We are love!
corrupted by fear, unwilling to hear, denying the beauty we found. We are answering the call of love, the call that's joined together as hearts as one, emboldened by faith, we dare to proclaim, we are answering for love. A bright new day is dawning, a bright new day. Love will not divide, reflections of grace, grace and grace, vision divine. We are answering the call of love, that's joined together as hearts beat as one, emboldened by faith, we dare to proclaim, we are answering for love. We are answering the call of love, that's joined together as hearts beat as one, emboldened by faith, we dare to proclaim, we are answering for love. We are answering the
It is good to be with you from this familiar yet strange place, which I call my office. As we anticipate being together again in our sanctuary, I invite you just a few more times to settle in here as we create a place of communal caring and connection. Be enriched by the virtual presence of each other and draw yourself closer into the heart of love at this time of service and reflection. In this time together, we ask that our minds be open, our hearts welcoming, and our arms embracing. Here we honor all who support us in this caring, loving, and all-inclusive ministry. We send gratitude to Robin Taylor, serving as our caring coordinator, arranging care for our members and friends in need. The members of our caring committee are wonderful examples of our compassionate community, holding us up as we go through challenging and happy times. This year has taken a lot out of us. It has taken a lot from us. If during this time of increasing needs in our lives you are experiencing challenges, we encourage you to reach out for support and help. Many of us may need additional care, whether it be personal, pastoral care, or other assistance, and we encourage you to reach out to Reverend Luke or myself with that request. In this community, we share pieces of our lives with one another. We do this because all people here have value. Each person's experience matters. We lift up those who are experiencing illness, sadness, or loneliness. May the strength and the love in our congregation help guide you. We revel in those who are experiencing joys in their lives. May their happiness lift us all, and may their joy filter into all around them. May all of us find love, hope, joy, and healing strength in this community. We hold Pat Wimmer in our thoughts as she heals up from a knee replacement surgery on July 19th. After a rocky start, she's on her way to recovery, and we send her healing energy from all of us. And past members, Sophia and Stefan Schleschler, announced the birth of their son, Raphael, on June 17th. They are so in love, and Leah is a very proud big sister. They continue to tune into online services and still feel connected to the church and the congregation, even when living in Germany. Leah loves the hymns, and they often sing the children's Benediction as a lullaby together, yesterday about 30 times in a row. We congratulate them and celebrate this new life. As we sneak around the corner into our new normal and ease into the future, which will be a new world, we ask for hope and patience, understanding and acceptance, and a renewed commitment of service to those in our lives, church, and community. As we begin the planning of regathering, we do so carefully and intentionally and with joy. May the faith in the spirit of life, love for the community of earth, and love for the light in each other be ours now and in all the days to come.
I invite you to take a deep breath as we said in Chalice Camp. Find your breath, center down. Sit deeply here in the circle of love and justice, hope and grace. Know that here you are named, you're known as beloved. Feel below you the earth and its ancient turning, and above you the sky, and beyond that the stars shining with their ancient light, holding you, made of earth and stars, in this moment, this breath. I invite you into this time of meditation, this time of prayer, first by sharing silence together. Spirit of life, its source of love, God of 1,000 names and beyond all naming, may we find some calm from our screen-bound lives, these distances miraculously lessened by the gifts of innovation and creativity, and yet the distance remains between how we are overconnected in some ways and underconnected in others, how our care for each other has kept us apart, and how the deepest part of being human, of being in community, has led us to find new ways of living. May we find some relief in these days. Among the onslaught of the news, the never-ending variance, joined with the rejection of science and love of falsehood, may our screen-weary souls find our way home. And however we can safely be in community, still from a distance, maybe some of those distances getting smaller. May we find at its core an abiding love holding us all. We hold in our hearts this day all those who suffer in mind, in body, or spirit. I invite you to bring the names you're holding in your own heart this day in joy or sorrow, celebration or concern, and in this time silently or aloud to speak their names. For all those names spoken, unspoken, may we be grateful for the fabric of love and life that weaves us together. May those threads hold us in love and strength. These words of meditation come from Kim Stafford, entitled Oregon Dawn, in Spite of the News. She writes, before I can get to the day's statistics, so many stricken, so many dead, I'm summoned by the birds raising a ruckus outside, crows and jays in festive outrage. Chur and aria from the little brown birds, the mournful dove, the querulous towhee, rusty starlings in their seesaw mutter, and a woodpecker flickering, hammering the gutter staccato. On the porch, I'm assaulted by the merciless scent of trees opening their million flowers as I inhale the deep elixir of hazel, hawthorn, maple, and oh, those shameless cherry trees. And just when I've almost recovered my serious moment, I gasp, helpless, to notice the full queen moon sliding down through a haze of blossoms. May we, in however we enter our days and this world, be met with a haze of beauty and love. Amen.
The first reading is Balance by Alice Fogel. Balance is everything, is the only way to hold on. We've weighed the alternatives, the hold is harbor. It isn't safe to let go. But consider the hover, choices made, the moment between later and too late. Hesitation is later, regret too late. You can't keep turning and turning or expecting to return. This earth is not a wheel. It is a rock that erodes mountain by mountain. And I have been too soft, like sandstone. But there is a point where I stand without a story, mutable and moved, solid as a breath in winter air. I have seen my death, and I know it is my neighbor, my brother, my keeper. In my life, I'm going to keep trying for the balance, remembering the risks and the values of extremes, and that experience teaches the length to allowable lean. That it is easier and wiser to balance a stone as if on one toe, though it weigh 100 pounds, than to push it back against the curve of its own world. The second reading is Progress by Julie Cadwallader Staub. I did not just drag and drop. I did not just haul a burden so heavy that my hands, arms, and shoulders gave way and I had to let it go. Neither did I just browse. I did not get on my hands and knees and join the gentle cows to slowly sample whatever the open field had to offer. Instead, I sat here at my desk, manipulating a mouse, which is not, in fact, a mouse, and I searched for something on the web that is not, in fact, a web. And isn't this how we move forward, with horsepower for jet engines and candle power for light bulbs? We take what we understand from one era to describe what we don't in the next.
Usually, it wouldn't be recommended to look directly into the sun. For our own well-being, our own health, there are some things so damaging to the senses and yet so captivating and powerful that it takes some experience of getting too close or going too far for your mind, your body, your heart, your gut to respond and remind you, take it easy, to care for yourself and others. But the other day, with the haze in the sky, I saw there along the horizon the sun about to set, its edges clear and its glow soft. And I questioned myself whether or not I should actually look at it from all those years of training myself not to, but there it was, not hurting my eyes, as if a filter had been put up against the sky, making it safe to see the beauty of that ball of fire, that source of life, like some deity signaling the end of day, bookended by the old edges of the Chuck E. Cheese sign now gone and the Trader Joe's sign, like flight signals on either side guiding the sun down, like a benediction for the day and a blessing for the night, some hazy threshold between night and day, today and tomorrow, right now and not yet. A haze of blossoms, writes the poet. There are some hazy days These are all hazy days, it seems, filled with the smoke of a world literally on fire, which is the only way I could look at the sun. A blessing to see it, but only because of the clouds of climate catastrophe gathering. Hazy days like the news coming at you each morning, not quite where we hope to be and just now moving in the wrong direction again. And you have to redirect your soul away from the doom scrolling to notice the song of the birds, as the poet Kim Stafford writes, reminding you of something wild and natural and alive like you right here. Hazy days, hard to navigate, like a school board meeting in Rochester, being ransacked by hatred and fear and misinformation, words saturated like late summer air with white supremacy and white fragility, individualism and idolatry, of the hypocrisy of decrying tyranny while at the same time hurling religion by making the Lord's Prayer a weapon in the public square. The irony of a people whose supposed teacher, Jesus, called his followers in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 6, to not be like the hypocrites, quoting, "For they love to pray standing on the street corners to be seen, but when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your God who is unseen." In case you missed all of this in the news, the July 13th Rochester School Board meeting was an affront, or included from some comments of those in the public, an affront to the values of inclusion and justice and community, just about any morality or ethical value at all. So, if you can fill the room in body or spirit, in person, online, as you are able, this coming Tuesday the 27th, that room needs to be filled. That space needs to be filled. The attention of those in leadership needs to be filled with love and justice and equity. I'll be there. I'll be speaking, and I invite you to join me as you are moved, because our community, and especially people of color and young people and educators, need to know this community not only supports but demands education that is rooted in justice and inclusion, that critical race theory is not worthy of being controversial, but is a simple statement of reality by and large, that our history as a country is rooted in systems of racism, discrimination. There is no other viable story. Those are not debatable facts. The stories can get hazy in this world. They can be complicated. Between health and science and climate and race and class, it can be difficult to move through the haze and the fog, to live at constant thresholds, not knowing what comes next or how to get home. Beth shared a bit about these several months as a church with the choir and the worship associates, the need to adapt the blessing and curses of these days and what sustains it. And in the words she shared from the poet, first from Alice Fogel's writing Balance. "In my life," writes Alice Fogel, "I'm going to keep trying for the balance, remembering the risks and the value of extremes, and that experience teaches the length of allowable lean." What is the allowable lean these days? The risks and values of extremes. How do we navigate the risk assessment still of everyday life? What have we learned during these days of distance and the unclear path forward? Or as the other poet today, Julie Staub, writes, "And isn't this how we move forward? With horsepower for jet engines and candle power for light bulbs, we take what we understand from one era to describe what we don't in the next." I love that. It's such a challenge, and it's so true, to take what we understand from one era to describe what we don't in the next. There's a well-known truth that is rarely spoken. but I'd like to assure myself, and maybe this will be helpful to you, nobody knows everything. There is so much we don't know, can't plan for, will never be certain of. We're always trying to describe what we don't know on the other side of the threshold using what we think we know from the life we've known. We don't really know the impact of our words or actions for a more just, equitable, healthy world. We don't know exactly in the next couple weeks how we'll handle coffee hour outdoors, where we'll put the name tags. What if it rains? What if too many people come? What if nobody comes? And what if the internet cuts out? And what if my voice shakes, or my conviction weakens, or my commitment wanes in any circumstance for any of us? What if I think I'm sure of something, and then I get to somewhere, and because of the surroundings, because of changing circumstances, I'm no longer sure of myself? And what if, and what if, and what if? These what ifs, these questions about how to use the powers we have, like our little wizards reminded us today, our powers of truth and faith and hope and love and magic. How do we use them to help illuminate our world? These what ifs, these questions are not only about the large world-altering questions, but they show up again and again and again in small little moments of each day, each part of our life. And as much as that can feel overwhelming, because it is, and as much as it can be daunting and draining and hard, because it is, perhaps too, knowing that we all hold those questions in different ways, knowing that those questions are big and small, that there is something about that, the universality of that among all people, among all aspects of life, that in some ironic way can help make it feel more manageable, I think. That those large questions on how to move forward, to take whatever we know and trying to figure out whatever unknown is on the hazy horizon, that the only way we move forward is to figure out how much to lean on what we know, to grow a little more comfortable with the unknown, and trust that we will not be going alone. That we can take one small moment, breath, glimpse, unclear as it may seem, at a time. And we cross whatever threshold is right here, right now, cross those other bridges when we get to them. And break it all down to some fundamentals. That I'm going to take this breath. I'm going to have this meal. I'm going to share this smile or moment. I'm going to give this talent or time or treasure. I'm going to do what I can, give what I can, take what I need right now. And if I can't fix the haze of it all, which, let's be honest, in some ways there will always be haze, perhaps I can find at least a little clearing around my own soul, my own heart, to do what I can, like Methodist John Wesley taught, to do the most good you can in all the places and times you can, as long as you can. Even the most motivating activists among us, they remind us we must never reach beyond our ability. Because whatever we have to offer, if we all do our part, then it will be more than enough. Then regardless of the haze, we might just find the beauty within it all, its edges a little more clear for the work we are called to, and the threshold a little lower, a little closer, to move to wherever love will call us next.
Spirit across generations, we carry our ancestors' songs in our hearts. Their melody holds us, their courage still enfolds us. musicians and artists of spirit, creating the beauty that lifts us in song. For hearts to be caring, for justice to be daring, we sing the love of ages as we journey on and on. We gather in spirit across generations. We carry our ancestors' songs in our hearts. Their melody holds us, their courage enfolds us. Our song is sung in harmony, each soul apart. We gather together in thanks.
Go yonder, and gather the people. Give them not hell, but courage and hope. Give them something of the love you have found here, and tell all the people that love is our home. By the light and power that is represented by these patches, these children, these youth, may we find our way forward into uncertain futures together. Well, welcome to Behind the Scenes as we shut down our pre-recorded services. So here's the blue Yeti mic that we've been using. Goodbye. We're kind of done with that, I hope, for a while, right? And I'll probably need to get something other than shorts. So now you know, not as fancy as it looks. But there's something I'm excited about. We're gonna get rid of this. We're gonna get rid of the cords and the little extra stands, and we're gonna have this space ready for you. And we'll distance and we'll mask, and we will open these doors for those who can come, and we will keep the live stream of Eliza Tupper Wilkes going for those who need to be at a distance. And together we will be in this space. Can't wait to see you.
home.